Last year, during a cold winter night, I was home alone. My parents had gone to visit my grandparents for the weekend. I wasn't new to being alone, but something about this night felt different, maybe because of the intense snowstorm outside. I had settled in the living room with a blanket, some hot cocoa, and a movie to keep me company. The house was warm and cozy, especially compared to the blizzard outside. I remember checking the locks on the doors and windows earlier, a habit my parents had instilled in me. As the night progressed, the wind's howling seemed to grow louder, almost like it was calling out. I tried to ignore it, but once you get these thoughts into your head while you're alone, it seems like they get worse. That's when I heard it, a faint tapping sound. At first, I thought it was just the tree branches against the window, but the tapping was too rhythmic, too intentional. I paused the movie, listening intently. The tapping continued, coming from the back door. My heart started to race. No one had any reason to be out there, especially not during a storm like this. I crept towards the kitchen where the back door was located, trying to be as quiet as possible. Peeking through the curtains, I saw a figure standing outside. It was hard to make out details in the darkness and the blowing snow, but someone was definitely there. Panic set in. We lived in a remote area, and the nearest neighbor was miles away. I didn't know what to do. I remembered my phone and rushed to grab it, but then realized I had left it charging upstairs. As I turned to head upstairs, the tapping turned into a more aggressive knocking. I froze, my mind racing. Should I confront them? Hide? The decision was made for me when I heard the sound of glass breaking from the kitchen. Adrenaline kicked in, and I ran upstairs to my room, locking the door behind me. I grabbed my phone, my hand shaking, and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? I whispered into the phone, explaining the situation to the operator. They told me to stay on the line and that help was on the way, but it might take time due to the storm. I crouched in the corner of my room away from the door, listening to every sound in the house. I could hear footsteps downstairs, the sound of drawers being opened and closed. The intruder was searching the house. Tears streamed down my face as I realized how vulnerable I was. The operator's voice was a small comfort, assuring me that help was coming. Then the footsteps started coming upstairs. I held my breath, praying they wouldn't try to enter my room. The footsteps stopped outside my door. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. There was a moment of silence, and then the handle on my door jiggled. I wanted to scream, but fear kept me silent. The intruder tried the handle a few more times before moving on. I stayed huddled in my corner, too scared to move, until I heard sirens in the distance. The footsteps hurried, moving back downstairs. A few minutes later, the police arrived. They found the back door broken and the house in disarray, but the intruder was gone, having fled into the storm when they heard the sirens. The police put a patrol car outside until my parents returned home. They never caught the intruder, but they believed it was someone looking for shelter from the storm and perhaps something to steal. That night changed me. The feeling of safety I had in my own home was shattered. It took a long time to feel comfortable being alone again, but eventually, I got through it. I work night shifts at a gas station not too far from where I live. My hours are never the same, but most times I'm back home by early morning, between 2 and 5. On this particular night, after a long and tiring shift, all I could think about was getting home, jumping into bed, and sleeping. The drive back was challenging. It was snowing, and I could barely see ahead of me. The roads were covered with snow. I had to concentrate hard to stay awake and alert. Once I arrived home, I parked on the street in front of my house and went inside. I made my way upstairs, feeling the weight of the night on my shoulders. I remember falling onto my bed, and it felt so good just to lie down. I must have fallen asleep in no time. When I woke up, I was still really tired, maybe even more than before. I wasn't sure why I woke up in the first place. I looked out the window, and it was still dark and snowing, so I knew I hadn't slept long. But then something weird caught my eye. The door of my bedroom was wide open. That's strange because I always sleep with it closed. I thought about it and couldn't remember closing it when I got home, but I was pretty sure I would have done it even if I was super tired. Feeling a bit uneasy, I got out of bed and walked across my room. The rest of the house was dark and quiet, which only added to the weird feeling. I closed my bedroom door, and just as it clicked shut, I heard a noise. It was like something moving somewhere else in the house. It scared me, and I froze, listening for any other sounds. But there was nothing, just silence. I told myself it was probably nothing, but I couldn't relax after that. So I opened my bedroom door again and decided to check around the house. I went to the next room, thinking maybe the noise came from there. It's just a simple room with a bed and a dresser. I looked around, but nothing was out of place. Just as I was about to go back to my room, I heard another sound, a door creaking open in the hallway. I peeked out and saw a man coming out of the closet. We looked at each other, and I knew I had seen him somewhere before, but I couldn't figure out where. I quickly went back into the room, locked the door, and heard him running down the stairs and out of the house. I waited a bit, then called 911. The police came and said there were no signs of someone breaking in. They thought maybe I left the front door unlocked. That seemed weird to me because I always lock it, but maybe I forgot to this time since I was so tired. The scariest part was realizing I knew the man's face from somewhere, but not knowing where. The idea that he was in my house, maybe even opened my bedroom door while I was asleep, was really creepy. He didn't take anything, which made it even more confusing. Maybe he recognized me too and changed his mind about whatever he was planning to do. Ever since then, I keep thinking about it, especially on snowy nights. It's hard to feel safe knowing someone was in your house, and you didn't even know it. The whole thing just makes me feel uneasy, and I can't stop wondering why he was there and what he could have done. I'm a 24-year-old woman living in a small house near my job. Until recently, my life had been uneventful, and I never had any unusual experiences. But an incident that occurred changed my perspective on social interactions. My daily routine was typical: go to work, come home, make dinner, and relax with a TV show or movie. Since it was Friday, I planned to stay up a bit later than usual, although sometimes I'd fall asleep earlier than intended. That night, I turned on a movie around 8 and eventually dozed off on the couch. My sleep was abruptly interrupted by a sharp sound, a notification from my phone, which I hadn't heard before. Startled, I picked up the phone from the coffee table, squinting against the bright screen. It was a message notification on Facebook, leading me to the Messenger app, which I rarely used. I opened the message, curious. It was from a man saying a simple hello. His name rang a bell, but he wasn't among my close friends. I clicked on his profile and noticed we had one mutual friend and had been connected on Facebook for 4 months. I vaguely remembered accepting his friend request, as my habit was to accept requests from anyone who shared mutual friends, given I didn't post anything too private online. I returned to the Messenger app and replied with a polite hi. Though it struck me as odd to receive a text so late at night, as soon as I sent the message, the man was quick to reply. His next message made me gasp and drop my phone on the table, my eyes darting to the window. He wrote, "I love that movie too. We should watch it together." The outside was dark, and it was snowing heavily, so I couldn't see anything through the window. But I was shaking, realizing someone was watching me from outside. I felt deeply uncomfortable, not knowing how long they had been there. My phone beeped again with another message from him. I was too scared to read it, frozen in place until the doorbell rang, causing me to jump. With tears in my eyes from panic, I called 911, struggling to explain my situation through my tears and overwhelming fear. The operator advised me to lock myself in a room and wait for help, which was only 5 minutes away. As I hung up, my phone continued to beep with more messages from the man, now in all caps, demanding that I open the door. Then a chilling final message came through, "Never mind." Shortly after, I heard a soft bang from another part of the house. It sounded distant at first, but then another bang, louder this time, echoed through the hallway near the kitchen. I realized it was coming from the basement. I ran to my bedroom, hearing another loud bang and the sound of something breaking. I locked myself in, crying uncontrollably from fear, listening to the sounds of the man moving through the basement and then up the stairs. I always kept the basement door locked, but I feared the man would break through any minute. The doorknob rattled, followed by several forceful shoves against it, and then loud knocks sounded at the front door. "Police, open up!" I heard from the other side. I sprinted to the front door, unlocking it to let the 2 male officers in. They could see the panic in my eyes as I quickly pointed them towards the basement door, telling them he was in there, guns drawn. They cautiously opened the door, and the intruder attempted to flee but was caught by the officers after a brief struggle. The man had broken in through the basement window. Astonishingly, he was the same man from Facebook, not using a fake account but his real identity. His reasons for breaking in were unclear, merely claiming he wanted to talk. This experience was surreal, something I thought only happened in movies. I spent the following week cleaning up my friends list on Facebook, removing anyone I didn't personally know. It was a sad realization but necessary in today's world to ensure my safety and privacy.